you're training day in, day out, but you're not fueling yourself right, in reality, you can be wasting a lot of time if you're not fueling your body correctly. The combination of the three did work for me because I was almost good at the swimming, cycling was comfortable, didn't want to do the running, but it got us there, and I fell in love with running at a later date, let's say. So many of us put so much training in. We really do, and it is like our life and it's our identity. And sometimes it can be really hard to like let that go when life stresses come in the way, and we lose ourselves within that. Don't compare yourself to others. And we say this for performance, but also for nutrition. I'm Emily. I think you've asked me here because I'm a triathlete mom who also works full time and has a lot going on, but I don't even really know how to introduce myself. I think I've been doing triathlon and like running and stuff for like 7 years now. So quite a while. And started in like early 20s, and yeah, kind of my life's kind of developed alongside it, I guess, through building a career, and yeah, now becoming a mum as well. So a big part of my life.
Where did that first kind of enter the chat then, triathlon?
For me, it was the fact that my dad, I remember he'd done an Ironman when I was in university, and I was actually working as a lifeguard at the time. I remember tracking it, and I was like, how is he doing that? Like, I'd kind of grown up swimming, and my dad was my coach back in the day. But yeah, he did an Ironman, and I thought that was absolutely insane. And then my ex-partner, like my ex at the time, he just entered like a sprint triathlon. And then it also happened to be that my PhD supervisor also did triathlon, and my secondary supervisor who'd also done it. And I was like, well, I know I can definitely swim, and that's most people's weakness when it comes to triathlon. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's just enter a little sprint one. That was back in 2016 or 17. I can't remember the exact year now. And it just, yeah, went from there really.
What is it about triathlon that kind of keeps you motivated other than just the one sport? Like you say, you got brought up swimming, but why was it that you decided to go down that sort of triathlon route rather than just sticking with swimming, biking or running?
It's a very, very good question, to be honest. When I was younger, like I like swam growing up, and then I quit when I was at university and just did classic uni life. Experienced it all. And then, yeah, when I finished university, and obviously was being surrounded by loads of people who did the sport, and to be honest, I hated running. So it was the means to an end at the time. Like thinking back then, it was like, okay, well, if I want to do a triathlon, I have to run. So I guess it introduced me to running in an easy way. And cycling was one of those things I wanted to do socially as well. So just the combination of the three did work for me, because I was almost good at the swimming, cycling was comfortable, didn't want to do the running, but it got us there. And I fell in love with running at a later date, let's say. I probably would just do a bit of running now, and obviously given being a parent, I think over the next few years it might be that I dabble in and out of doing one sport versus all three, obviously with new priorities in life, but I'm definitely not stopping anything altogether.
What was that development into actually enjoying running and loving running then? How did that kind of happen over the years?
When my injuries stopped. Sounds silly, but because I grew up swimming, my body wasn't really very used to impact. So my first few years of running were hard work, lots of shin splints, lots of injuries. So it's hard to really enjoy it when you couldn't get into a rhythm with it. I'd say it took a good 2 years to build that initial running strength, where I could then do, okay, I can actually do 10K now, not just a 5K. And I could start to look at further distances and stuff. And then it gets a bit more exciting, doesn't it? We can go on a long run and put a podcast on, and you're not just constantly thinking about being in pain. So I think for me, it was once my body had transitioned to being able to deal with the impact of running, I started to be able to enjoy it a bit more. And I used to be able to go socially for runs with people as well. And it just became easier, I guess.
You mentioned kind of the body changing in running there. Obviously, you've gone through a big change in your life and also your body, I would imagine, over the past sort of 12 months. What has that been like? Obviously, becoming a mum and then getting back into sport postpartum as well.
Yes. So, well, she was one on Saturday, just gone. So it literally is bang on 12 months. But thinking back to even through pregnancy as well. So I did Ironman Finland in 2022 in the August, and I fell pregnant that November. So it wasn't that long after the Ironman but I just knew that obviously being pregnant, I was like, okay, well, things are going to have to change a little bit here. And so my perspective automatically changed. And to be honest, I moved away from triathlon and running the whole way through my pregnancy, purely for a few different reasons. I had a hip injury that I'd picked up from the Ironman for one. So running wasn't going to help. And I was already putting it through enough, carrying a baby now. And with triathlon, like each to their own, but with the sport guidelines for exercise and physical activity, I went into like the academic research with being an academic myself. And it was all about like just monitoring your heart rate, basically, not being able to push to like maximum. Obviously, again, each their own and how everyone deals with their own pregnancy. But I found it difficult to enjoy swimming because I was just plodding up and down. Like, I didn't feel like I could do anything high because I didn't know what my heart rate was. So I felt a bit out of control. So I kind of fell out of love with it. I really, really got into strength training instead because I felt a lot more in control of what I was doing. So so for that 9 months, I did a bit of turboing. I didn't ride my bike on the road. Again, personal choice. Some women choose to through pregnancy, but I personally didn't feel safe to. And so I just I almost had that time as a break from triathlon and running, which I never thought I would do, but maybe because I'd just done an Ironman, which was obviously super, super intense, it almost came as like a welcome change, as I'd been doing the sport for 7 years. So maybe just having a few months away from it where I was focusing on something else really did me good in the long term. And my hip injury eventually healed, which was great. Did loads and loads of strength training. So probably came back a lot stronger than I had been previously, because let's be fair, most of us do neglect strength training, but now I don't. I definitely don't now. And then I didn't have the best end to my pregnancy. I was actually in hospital for about 6 weeks due to pregnancy complications that were completely, I was just really unlucky. It was nothing to do with my physical activity or anything like that. It was just luck of the draw, unfortunately. But once I'd got out, I had a C-section, which meant recovery was a bit slower. And I had to take that into account, that I think most women are told like 6 weeks postpartum they can start to exercise again if they get the all clear. But for a C-section, it's 12 weeks. I actually paid privately to see a physio who specializes in like athletes returning to sport from pregnancy, purely because the NHS just kind of like, how do you feel? Okay, let's go. Which is obviously I needed a bit more than that personally. Again, lots of personal choices are made, and everyone's story is different. But yeah, then I managed to do a sprint triathlon at 12 weeks postpartum, which is pretty mad. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't very fast, but it was just getting into the swing of things and enjoying it again. I think I started running 8 weeks postpartum, but I started like swimming and cycling a little bit earlier because I had the all clear, which again I paid for privately to get checked out. And then the year since, so thinking about the last 12 months, it's been learning how to balance training and appreciate it's not going to be the same as it was. My partner also does triathlon and running. He actually has a running background. He was a track runner growing up. And luckily, because we both kind of respect the sport and what it takes, we're very much like, we're like a tag team approach. And we're also quite lucky that he works from home a lot, which makes it easier. Like, for example, there's 3 mornings in the week where I've got like an hour window where I can do what I want, and he looks after my little girl. Then this more when I was on maternity leave, I would then have her for the day. He would do something on his lunch break, and in the evening we'd then finish work at 4 p.m, which is great if you're working from home because we both got time to train in that and like swap over and make dinner. And it was just, it's all very regimented. And obviously sometimes it doesn't work that way. Some days you got less sleep, some days the baby's ill, but in general, I'm very, very grateful that my other half like really was supportive in me getting back to sport as well, not just his own sporting needs and what he wants to do. And then and I've now gone back to work, so obviously the routine completely changed again, and the nursery came into the mix, and it's just constantly being able to adapt. But it's been a strange year. I was planning on doing a half Ironman in May, but unfortunately I fell ill. Nursery bugs got me. So I did all the training for it, and then I couldn't race. And then I did an Olympic distance triathlon. So I finally did a race in June, which obviously was like great. Finally getting back into it. And then I came out with a stomach bug because the water quality was so bad. So I got ill again. And then I was meant to do a sprint triathlon. This is why I'm sorry. This is just full disclosure of nothing goes to
No,
plan.
I love it. I love it.
Plan to train, and I'd had this race season planned out. I was meant to do meant to be doing a half Ironman this weekend, and I was meant to do a sprint triathlon 2 weeks ago as the warm up, or maybe a week ago now. I can't remember. And my other half has ended up in hospital very dramatically. He was in Lanzarote, so I had to do a last minute flight out, bring him back to the UK, and yeah, I don't think either he was meant to be doing this weekend as well, so I don't think either of us are doing it. I've just obviously got too much stress with baby and work and stuff to be thinking about that right now. So let me come back to you in like September, and we'll see if I actually get to race after doing all the training for the last 12 months, because at the moment I've just not been very lucky with how things have panned out. But the process has still been rewarding, and I definitely think that you have to just like alter your expectations a little bit on what's achievable compared to like pre having a child. Like life is very, very different. Everyone's circumstance is different. Like if my other half all didn't work from home, definitely wouldn't be able to get as much training in. And so you can't like judge what other people are doing or also compare as well. I think everyone's journey is really, really different. There's some people who can do even more than me, and God knows how they do it.
I would imagine training for an Ironman you thought was busy, and then now all of this has happened and you're like, wow, I was actually pretty chill back then. That was actually all right.
Yeah, and obviously I also chose to go back to work full time as well, which again, personal preference. Some mums will think they can't do that and they would rather stay with their little one. But for me, my career was also really important. So I'm trying to get that balance right between having a career and also being the best mum I can be. Again, you can't judge anyone, and you've got to let everyone do their own thing. But yeah, we all pick our battles, I guess, is the best word. I did get a really good half marathon though in April. I'm not sure if you remember me doing it. It was with the team. So
at Eaton Park, you were the first female on that day, and also I was going to say
3 weeks before.
At Chester 10K as well. I know that you ran, was it like 30 seconds off your 10K PB or something, off like not a huge amount of training. So what, like,
I can't believe it.
that I guess shows that giving your body a break sometimes can maybe be beneficial. I know obviously you were going through something very different with your body, but realistically that shouldn't have happened, right?
Yeah, and maybe just having that, like, as I said, it was probably like 7 to 8 months, because my little girl she was born premature. As I said, I had a few complications at the end. But I had like 7 to 8 months off, pretty much off running, off triathlon, off everything. And then, yeah, I think my 10K PB was set in 2020. So it was quite a long time ago now. It was like 40 minutes and 8 seconds. And yes, that 8 seconds haunts my life. And then, Chester 10K, I was like, well, let's just see where I'm at now. And I was like, if I run about like 42, 43, because obviously I'd been training and I knew roughly like where I was getting back to, I was like, I'll be made up. And I ran a 14 minutes and 38 seconds. And that PB was from 2020. And I hadn't even got close since. So, I'd done lots of strength training though. And so, although I'd had a lot of time out, I don't know, maybe... I think that was in March. I must have been like, how many months postpartum was it then? Maybe 8 to 9 months postpartum. So I'd been started training again, only 6 months in. So it was insane, very unexpected results. And the half marathon PB in April was very unexpected as well. But I do put that down to the strength training through my pregnancy.
Yeah, and that's also not like the easiest of courses. There's a few hilly parts in that Eaton Park.
I wish I'd looked at it in a bit more detail. I literally just I picked the dates that worked rather than the course. So maybe I would have got even quicker.
Well, yeah, that was what I mean. And like, I think probably if you're putting it down to a little bit more strength training or a lot more strength training on that course where there is those climbs, it probably would suggest that is the case, which is, I mean, that's exciting for what's to come. I know it hasn't been the perfect season, but it's exciting.
It's not over yet.
Yeah, exactly. And it's exciting to know that there is that to come as well. Is there have you got goals in mind of what you'd like to do? Do you want to go back to racing an Ironman at some point? Or is it kind of like you're just going to play it a little bit by ear and just kind of juggle everything else that's going on as well?
So there was big plans that have gone out the window a little bit. So the race we were meant to do this weekend was a half Ironman that was a qualifier for Worlds, and my other half really wanted to qualify for New Zealand. He did Kona a few years ago, Obviously, he's not going to be able to compete now. And his family lives out in New Zealand. So it was really like that was the goal for us to go. So that's literally just been wiped off the cards as of this week. So it's still a bit fresh and trying to figure out what we'll want to do now. And moving forward, my other half is some issues with his heart. So we don't actually know exactly what sport's going to look like for him yet. So we'll have to figure that out when we cross that bridge. But I think now the goal setting will come down to I'm probably going to try and do a half Ironman at some point this year. I won't be doing a full this year because I think it's, for me personally, I don't think it's very achievable with my little one and work. I know mums who have done it, but it's again personal choice. I don't think I can be present as a mom and in my career and training for an Ironman right now. I think when she's a little bit older, so in a few years, I think I can, but right now it just doesn't really work. But I do want to do a half Ironman because obviously it's a hell of a lot less training, but it's still like a good endurance event. Like it's still quite long, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think I'll probably think about doing one in September, October time. Now, obviously, as I said, is literally this week our plans have gone out the window. So we'll see. And I've also toyed around the idea of doing a marathon season, or training for a late marathon, maybe even like a December one and going abroad. So that's possibly on the cards as well. What else have I considered? Oh, me and a friend are doing, I know pretty much everyone's doing this at the moment anyway, but we managed to get into a high rocks event because she also loves strength training. So we're going to be mixing it up in November and doing a high rocks as like a doubles event. So I'm excited for that, like change of, I've been using all my strength to support my running and triathlon, but let's see what I can do in a bit more of a strength-based, high-intensity environment as well. So just testing my body in other ways. So I'll get back to you on the exact goal, but as I said, it all went out the window literally like this last week or so. So it's all very fresh at the moment of trying to work out what we're doing next.
And I think that's an important message as well, though, isn't it? Like, sometimes things happen that are way more important than athletic goals, and you're obviously in a point right now in your life where, and you have been for a little bit with giving birth and having your little one, and then kind of all this happening at the moment, which is obviously a lot to kind of process right now. You have to kind of take a step back and sometimes remember that that's always going to be there, but this is kind of more important at this point.
A good way I try and think about what you've just described is, so many of us put so much training in. We really do, and it is like our life and it's our identity. And sometimes it can be really hard to like let that go when life stresses come in the way, and we lose ourselves within that. But I always just try and think back, we're not professionals, we're not professional athletes, we're not getting paid to do this. You sometimes need to like let it take a step back and remember your fitness will come back. You will be able to get there again. Obviously I know some people are like, oh, age is against me and all this, but again, it's not your job. It's not life or death. It will be there. And sometimes other things need to take over. Like I've pretty much stopped training since my other half's been in hospital and I probably could try and find the time if I was really, really like, this morning, for example. So we got up at 6, little girl, breakfast, all that, taking her to she's at her nan's today. I'm now working all morning, and then I'll be going to the hospital for visiting hours from 2 till 5 p.m, which is an hour drive away, the hospital is, and then coming back and then getting my little girl at 6 p.m, dinner, bed, routine or whatever. If I really wanted to, I probably could train at 9 p.m. tonight. But in reality, I need to cook myself an actual meal. Like there's a lot going on right now, and probably also finish some work because I'm in the hospital in the day. I'll take my laptop with me. I'm not getting as much work done. So yeah, you've got to pick your battles sometimes. So me choosing not to train during this little short period where it's not going to be forever, it's going to be for a few weeks, I can then get back into it. I could try and train, but I'd run myself into the ground and burn out. And I think that's cool with being in the sport for like 7 years now. I think if I were in this situation like 3 or 4 years ago, I probably would have tried to fit it in more, and I would have put too much pressure on myself. Whereas now it's like my priorities have changed, and I know the sport will always be there for me. And right this minute, it's not the most important thing in my life.
I want to talk about your work a little bit, because I know we've mentioned it a few times, and it is an obvious passion of yours. Talk to me about what you do if people don't know that are listening to this, and why was the decision made to, go back and continue pursuing this?
Yes, so my career is really, really important to me. I was actually at university for a hell of a long time. I look back at it now and I'm like, wow. So I did an undergraduate degree in sports science and specialized in physiology and nutrition. And then from then, I really was passionate about like the research into the areas. So I did a master's degree and a PhD in research in exercise metabolism and nutrition. I then, like, my main role is I'm a lecturer in nutrition. So lots of teaching, but I also still really enjoy working with people as a sports nutritionist as well. So I do a lot of one-to-one nutrition. I've worked with the likes of Science in Sports and PhD nutrition, and also done some work with like the education team in British Cycling. Who else have I worked with? I've worked with quite a few different people now, and it's all out of this passion. Like they're my passion projects, let's call them. So although I lecture as my main role, everything else I do is the passion projects and working with athletes on a one-to-one basis. Again, like helping them understand their nutrition so they can actually optimize performance. Again, if you're training day in, day out, but you're not fueling yourself right, then you're not getting the most out of it. And in reality, you can be wasting a lot of time if you're not fueling your body correctly. And there's so many people who just don't understand that. And so I'm so passionate about giving people the nutritional knowledge and information that's like science, evidence backed for them to make their own decisions. Like I feel like there's too much garbage out there. There's too much misinformation in nutrition in particular, which is so painful to see. That people can get so lost and they don't understand like what's best, especially when half of the misinformation out there is based around the general public. And if you're training for something and you're an athletic individual, then you're not actually the general population. So half of the research that's done won't apply to you if it's not done in runners, for example. So it's a proper little, I can go into rants on that for hours.
It's you mentioned like being in uni and feeling like you were studying for ages. It was
like 8 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like that must feel so rewarding.
Now I work in one.
You're still there. Like it must feel super rewarding now though, like being able to share that knowledge that you've learned and being able to, like you said, give the knowledge to people to make their own informed decisions. Is that something that does feel that way, like quite rewarding?
Yeah, 100%. And I've done other rewarding jobs in my time as well. Like I said, I used to work for Beat, the eating disorders charity for the UK. I used to work on their helpline. That was probably one of my most rewarding roles. So as well as sports nutrition, I'm also really passionate about raising awareness on like eating disorders and disordered eating, especially in sports environments as well. So that's probably the even more rewarding side of like what I've done in my career so far. But I still feel like a baby in reality, to be honest. So I'm turning 30 next year. So I'm like, well, I'm actually still at the beginning of my career. And that's why when I had my daughter, Maya, I just needed to go back to it because I was like, I've got so much more I want to do. And since having her, like I didn't really do any one-to-one nutrition beforehand. So like things have changed and I've progressed and I've taken on new projects and I've got so much out of it already. I do really enjoy it. Even when I had my daughter, like throughout maternity, I was really active. I have an Instagram page for me as a nutrition professional. And I actually built that when I was on maternity leave because beforehand I'd never had the time to sit down and do it. And now I've created this whole like little community of people that I can reach out to and share my knowledge and also work with athletes. And yeah, it's great. So it's definitely like the passion project side of it. So although, I do get paid for it, it's driven by this like passion and drive. The biggest issue I have in the nutrition industry, and as I said about all this misinformation, is that nutritionist isn't a protected title. If you're a dietitian, it's protected. No, you can't call yourself a registered dietitian unless you're a dietitian. But for some reason, nutritionist isn't. So you get so many people who aren't actually qualified talking about nutrition. And the thing is, because everyone eats, everyone has an opinion. So they think they think that they know best. And yeah, my advice would be to anyone listening to this, if you want to work with a nutritionist or you're following nutritionists, make sure they're actually registered and qualified. There's something called the Association of Nutrition, which is a good place to start. And they have like literally a list of registered nutritionists. So actually, who's actually qualified to be saying this information as well? And I think in the next 5 to 10 years, I wouldn't be surprised if it does change and it does become like you have to be a qualified nutritionist to say you are one. I think there are people starting petitions and stuff to protect the title and that, but we'll see. Watch that space. We'll see what happens.
What are the biggest mistakes? And I feel like this is a really sweeping general question, but like in nutrition for somebody that is exercising, you know, this is the problem when you say the biggest mistakes, because there are so many other things you need to add into that to be like the biggest mistakes if this person is doing this. But I guess as an overarching topic in like if you're participating in exercise to a decent level, what would you say are the biggest mistakes that people tend to make?
Okay. First one is underfueling massively. Because I think a lot of people who are exercising regularly, especially at the beginning as well, might come from a weight loss perspective. Like some people get into running, for example, to try and lose weight. And obviously we want to try and be in a calorie deficit for weight loss, but it's about choosing how to do that carefully and choosing like right. So if you're having your rest days, for example, they're better to be in a calorie deficit, because if you've got actual running goals, you don't really want to be in much of a deficit on the days where you've got key training sessions, because it will also just impact your performance. So a lot of the time, underfueling is one that people really struggle with. Even if weight loss was just an example there, but just generally day to day, people are so busy with their work lives and family lives that food comes secondary, and when you are training regularly, it becomes way more important to get your nutrition a bit more right, let's say, just to unlock what you're actually capable of. So underfueling is a big one that seems to, like when we do our one-to-one nutrition plans, like, oh my God, I'm eating so much more. Like I didn't realize this is how much I could eat. And then they're like, you know what? I ran faster today. I'm like, yeah, well, you know what? It's usually because people are underfueling, and even just choosing like some foods are so calorie dense when in reality you can eat so much more with different types of foods as well. And then like I'm eating so much more volume of food, but getting the same energy, and they can't get their head around that. Another super common mistake is, again, it comes with the busy lifestyle. Like a lot of people will train fasted in the morning and go and do the run. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you've got like a key run where you've got threshold intensity or you're doing a fast run, then you should do that in a fueled state. If you're doing like an easy run, or like 45 minutes, even up to an hour, you can get away with doing that fasted. But if you are trying to put intensity down, your body prefers using carbohydrates as a fuel source. So you can still do it in a fasted state, but you probably won't do it as well as if you did it in a fuel state. And that doesn't mean you need to get up and have a full breakfast at 4 a.m. before your 5:30 run or whatever, because you need time to go down. It means have like half a banana before you go out, just so there's something in the tank. Full banana if you can stomach it, because obviously I know everyone's stomachs are different with what they can handle. But yeah, choosing the right sessions on how to fuel them correctly is something that a lot of people get wrong, or they fuel all their sessions the same, even though they don't do all their runs the same. You know, just we're creatures of habit. So a lot of the time we'll eat the same foods every single day in the same amounts, but our training load will be varied day to day, and also your the intensity. So the intensity and duration is going to change. So it's like, well, why is your nutrition not varying with that? And then you're like, oh yeah, like, you know, maybe it should. So yeah, fueling, we call it fueling for the work required, is the best like terminology for looking at that. It's one of the main things we try and help with when working with athletes one-on-one, is like educating which sessions are suitable for what, and then figuring out what works for them. Bit trial and error. It might be like some raisins in the morning, for example, is a good one. I use morning as an example because that's the most common one where people run fasted. But sometimes if you have an 8 from 12 p.m. in the day at lunchtime, and then you get home from work and you're running at 7 p.m. and just feeling sluggish, well, it's probably because you haven't ate since 12 p.m. So it's, working out timings and how we can fit into these busy lifestyles that we have. It's hard work.
I mean, it's such a massive topic and we could probably talk for another 45 minutes, but I know you're really, really busy. So we will finish with this. In terms of everything you've learned over the years, like you say, studying for 8 years, working in the industry now, being a lecturer, having been in sport for so long as well. If there was one message in nutrition, and we've probably covered quite a few of them already, to be fair, but if there was one message one piece of information that you just always want to scream and you're like, this is the one piece I always want to share, is there something that you can think of?
Yes, don't compare yourself to others. And we say this for performance, but also for nutrition. If your friend says, yes, this works for me, I take this energy gel at 20 minutes into my half marathon, and then I take a banana at 40 minutes, blah, 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 doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. It might give you an upset stomach. It might work for them. So it's work out what works for you. Don't compare yourself to others, and you are an individual. It always makes me laugh. I'm in 1 or 2 Facebook groups about running and stuff, and everyone's like, what do you recommend for this? And everyone's like, this, I do this, I do this, I do this. And it's like, yeah, but we need to work out what works for you. So yeah, don't compare. You're an individual. Take your performance personally as well as your nutrition.